Now I'm very excited to welcome the CEOs of two of the most dynamic corporations in the entire country to this year's Oklahoma Creativity Forum. You know, creativity is in our group's name, but it is in the DNA of the two corporate leaders we have with us today. John Mackey, the co-founder and co-CEO of Whole Foods Market, and Aubrey McClendon, CEO and co-founder of Oklahoma-based Chesapeake Energy, have a lot in common. They both have vivid imaginations of the possible. They both had an idea early in their careers for a business. They both had no money, and they both borrowed money from their fathers to fund their ideas. I bet their fathers have been paid back handsomely. Once armed with capital, John and Aubrey commenced efforts to turn their ideas into realities, and they did so with unrelenting devotion, perseverance, and an incredible ability to think creatively and to innovate along the way. John and Aubrey are the consummate entrepreneurs. When you look at how far their ideas have taken them, it's not a stretch to say that they are transformative leaders in their respective industries. One continues to change the retail food business, and the other continues to change the energy industry. Both are making America a better place to live. Their companies are fueled by creativity, and in the case of Aubrey, his company is also fueled by compressed natural gas. John's company is fueled by top-quality, healthy food. Both of these leaders are quick to credit their employees for the success of their companies. They take care of their employees, and it's important to them to create a work environment that inspires creativity and cooperation. That could be why both companies are consistently ranked in the Fortune 100 Best Companies to Work For list. That's quite a feat, and it's a testimony to these two creators who have put their ideas into action. And the results speak for themselves. It's a great honor to have them both with us today. It's my pleasure now to introduce you to a true friend and someone who I've admired for many years as he built Chesapeake Energy into one of the nation's most dynamic energy companies. I will introduce Aubrey, who will introduce his friend and colleague, John Mackey. Now, prior to graduating from Duke University in 1981, Aubrey was a Belle Isle Laker, a school in the Oklahoma City Public Schools District, and a Heritage Hall Charger. So when Aubrey says, "Go Lakers," he's certainly not referring to the LA Lakers, I can guarantee that. But he's talking about the Belle Isle Lakers. He was a landman and an independent producer of oil and natural gas from 1982 until co-founding Chesapeake Energy Corporation in 1989. Since then, he has served as chairman of the board and chief executive officer for the company. Please join me in welcoming the CEO of our presenting sponsor, Chesapeake Energy's Aubrey McClendon.
Thank you, Bart. That was gymnastically overly gracious. Appreciate that. It's my distinct pleasure and honor and privilege today to introduce John Mackey to you, certainly one of the most creative and capable American businessmen out there today. And so I'm very eager to tell you about it, and particularly his success, because I'm also his landlord in North Oklahoma City, so I want him to do well. But about 10 years ago, I came up with a list of things that I wanted to see Greater Oklahoma City accomplish over, let's say, the next 10 years. So first thing, I wanted the University of Oklahoma to win a football championship, so check that box off. Then I wanted a dome on top of the state capitol, check that box off. I wanted an NBA team, so check that box off. I wanted to beat the University of Texas from Austin, where John is from, at least 2 out of every 3 times in the decade. We can check that box off. I thought it'd be fun to have a 900-foot office building tower downtown. So Devin took care of that, so check that off. But the one thing that was left on my list is we didn't have a really, really great grocery store, I thought. So in 2007, we reached out to the Whole Foods organization and tried to talked them into coming to Oklahoma City, and I think they looked at us as a little down market for them, maybe a little too blue collar, and we reminded them that they were successful in Tulsa, and that if you wanted to talk down market, okay, so long story short, 2008 came and went, and we didn't have a store, but in 2009, John's co-CEO, Walter Robb, came to Oklahoma City. We made a deal, and 3 weeks ago, Whole Foods opened right across the street from Chesapeake on Northwestern, south of 63rd. If you haven't been there, I encourage you to go there. It is remarkable, and really excited to have them here. Now I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Whole Foods itself. Albert Einstein once said, "The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination." So when it comes to imagination and innovation, John Mackey is certainly the Einstein of our time in the world of retailing. His brainchild, Whole Foods Market, thrives through the pursuit of John's founding vision that a community's grocer serves a higher purpose than just making money. A community grocer contributes to the health of both the customers and its suppliers. It leads to healthy farms, healthy foods, healthy lives, healthy families. They're all tied to the success of the community grocery store. And John Mackey proved that you can follow this vision and still build a profitable business in the meantime. He's a leading practitioner of empowerment management. John's success can be attributed to his belief in the ideals of decentralization, respect for the individual, and self-empowerment. His commitment to innovation and experimentation with new ideas is certainly well known in the industry, certainly well known in the business community, and it's led to Whole Foods being named as one of Fortune's top 100 best companies to work for the last 14 years in a row. John started with just one store in Austin, Texas in 1980. It's grown to become a $10 billion Fortune 500 company that's now one of the largest supermarket chains in America. Through Whole Foods' success, the entire organic products industry in the U.S. was born. From farmers and suppliers to distributors and wholesalers to other retailers, John basically created this market. By the end of 2008, the organic food market in the U.S. had grown to be a $24 billion market. The company now has 316 stores in the U.S., Canada, and the U.K., and I was told this by one of his employees, and I hope it's okay to, in his mind, to mention it, but the Oklahoma City opening day was one of the 10 best the company has ever had across their 316 stores, so we're quite proud of that. John's most recent focus in his professional life is in reinvigorating Whole Foods' emphasis on healthy eating and lifestyle choices. I'm sure he'll tell us quite a bit about that. He's recently been quoted as saying, "Many of our country's most serious health conditions, including obesity, diabetes, and heart disease, can be lessened or eliminated by following some simple principles of healthy eating that include primarily plant-based, unprocessed whole foods, and avoidance of all fats, but those found naturally in plants." This from the man from whom last weekend I bought 24 sausages, all different varieties. So I'll let him reconcile that for you. Let me tell you just a little bit about John the man and then bring him out here. John was raised in Houston. He was obviously a very smart student. A scrappy basketball player, I'm told. He attended the University of Texas. He studied philosophy, and I'm told a few other unusual things that he experimented with back then. That did not lead to a graduation path for him, which recently we're reminded with Steve Jobs and also with Bill Gates that maybe that's the best path to success in the country these days. John started a natural foods business in 1978 by raising $45,000 from his father. 2 years later, he engineered a merger with one of the other health food stores in Austin and relocated the store to 10th and Lamar, which is their flagship location today, and renamed the business Whole Foods Market. His first store was flooded out after just a few months, and they had no flood insurance, but through the generosity of his customers, through their labor and their capital, he rebuilt. John, you'll find out shortly, is a very passionate person. He has lots of outside interests besides his business. He's an accomplished hiker. He's hiked the Appalachian Trail twice, just recently back from a big hiking expedition in Scotland. He is a well-known and fascinating speaker, featured on many news media and in many conferences, and in particular, the annual Libertarian Freedom Fest is one of his favorite things to attend every year. He's also a very accomplished diver who's explored the world over, and he is certainly a leader in all aspects of his industry, as well as the progressiveness with which he approaches his business and his employees. I'm very delighted to introduce to you John Mackey of Whole Foods.
Well, Aubrey was talking about Bart's gracious introduction. That was way over the top. Certainly the first time I've ever been in the same sentence with Albert Einstein, and not later on Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, like, how ridiculous is that? Well, I'm only speaking for about 15 minutes, and I'm going to try to tie back what Whole Foods is doing to creativity. Oh yeah, let me make the one comment on the fact that I do live in Austin, Texas. Our football team got their butts kicked by both OU and Oklahoma State this year. When do those two teams play? That's going to be a heck of a game. So anyway, I'm going to tie everything Whole Foods is doing back to creativity, and I'm going to talk about our culture, which is, I think, a highly creative and innovative culture. So the first thing to realize about creativity, I believe creativity is intrinsic to human nature. Every child is creative, and the creativity, it tends to go out of us as we move into school and we end up in these type of structures that are bureaucratic and don't encourage it. And yet, so first thing to realize about creativity is that I think it's intrinsic to human nature and that we have to encourage it in our organizations. Instead, what we generally have is command and control type structures, bureaucratic structures, and all fear-based leadership. Those are poisonous and antithetical to creativity. At Whole Foods' culture, the things I'm going to talk about today are purpose, decentralization, empowerment, authenticity, transparency, love, care, trust, innovation, and collaboration. These are all cultural attributes in an organization that lead to greater creativity and innovation. So if I was doing my longer talk on conscious capitalism today, I would cover all this and a lot more. But these are the tenets of a conscious business. This is my one slight commercial towards conscious capitalism. Higher purpose, stakeholder orientation, conscious leadership, and conscious culture. We're going to talk about purpose and culture and leave the other two out today. So in conscious culture, we're going to put purpose underneath that. These are the strategies, processes, and structures that we believe reinforce a special kind of leadership that leads to highly innovative, creative organizations. Starting with purpose. Purpose is such an interesting thing. It is one of the most important keys to encouraging innovation and creativity in an organization. I like to say businesses need to shift from concentrating on maximizing profits to maximizing purpose. Click, click, click. We're stuck on purpose. So it's very interesting to ask what the purpose of a business is, because usually the default answer to that, if you ask people at an airport randomly, or if you go to a cocktail party and you ask people what the purpose of business is, they'll look at you like, well, duh. Everybody knows the purpose of business. The purpose of business is to make money. And yet, that's such a curious answer. if you think about it a little bit deeper. Because if we ask the question, what's the purpose of a doctor? They don't say the purpose of a doctor is to make as much money as possible. And yet doctors are obviously very well paid. And yet what is the purpose of doctors? To heal people, right? If we ask what the purpose of a teacher is, it's not to maximize income, it's to educate people. If we ask the purpose of architects, design buildings, engineers construct things, even lawyers, all jokes aside, the purpose of lawyer, at least what they teach students in law school, is that they are promoting justice and fairness in a democratic society. Why is it that only business is put into this category of profit seekers as their only reason for existence? I believe it's that type of narrow definition of business purpose that has given business such a bad reputation in the world. It's usually portrayed as sort of selfish and greedy and exploitative. And it's because business doesn't put forth its purpose. It doesn't explain the value that it creates in the world. Who gets to define what the purpose of any business is? Is it economists that do? Is it lawyers that do? Politicians? I would argue it's pretty obvious that it's the entrepreneurs who create the business in the first place who define the original purpose of a business. And today in the 21st century, entrepreneurs more than ever, the leadership of a conscious business, they are entrepreneurs of meaning. It's important that leaders interpret why a business exists and explain it to the world, explain it to your employees, explain it to your customers, explain it to the larger community. Businesses, in my experience, that flourish over the long term continue to evolve their purpose to higher and higher degrees of complexity and meaning. Purpose is essential to creativity in business because it unleashes creativity. It unleashes innovation. It's not very inspiring if I tell people at Whole Foods, hey, we're so glad you're working for Whole Foods now. Your job's to maximize shareholder value in the stock price. And thank you very much. We're going to pay you $10 an hour to do that. That's not going to get it done. The power of purpose. This is such a good quote by Roy Spence, who's an amazingly creative entrepreneur. He runs the largest advertising agency in Texas called GSDM. It's right across the street from the Whole Foods headquarters. Roy's good friends. The difference you're trying to make in the world drives everything you do. It matters to all the stakeholders, being that goes beyond making money and in making more money than you thought possible. A little inconsistent on my mic here. If you think about the companies that you most admire in the world, probably each one of those is hearing the dream of higher purpose. The highest ideals that humans have ever been able to characterize, going back to Plato, the good, the true, the beautiful, and I've added the heroic, practically any higher purpose that a business realizes in the world can be slipped into one of these four categories. In terms of the pursuit of the good, service to others, improving health, education, community, and the quality of life. A good example of that, one of my favorite examples, is Southwest Airlines. They are an incredibly service-oriented airline. They're highly creative and innovative. And I've had the opportunity to meet Herb Kelleher, and he's an amazingly creative individual. And Southwest has always flown to that sense of higher purpose in terms of service to others. Looks like we're switching this one out. Is this better? Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Another good example is the Container Store. Practically any business that's in service business can fall into this category or should fall in this category. Second category, the pursuit of the true. Think about how exciting it is to discover something that no one has ever known before that makes the world a better place. How many people here Googled something in the last 24 hours? Raise your hand. Do you realize Google did not exist 13 years ago? And yet, I can't even get through a day without Googling multiple times. Their higher purpose to collect and organize the world's information helps push humanity further along, as does companies like any technology company like Intel, biotechnology companies like Genentech. These companies have discovered basic truths about the world that are enabling humanity to make great progress. We talk about the higher purpose of the beautiful, the creative aspects. We tend to think that's artistic, but yet business can be highly creative and interested in art and beauty. What is Apple? What Steve Jobs did with Apple is simply amazing because their technologies are stunningly beautiful. And probably, how many people here have at least one piece of Apple technology, either a computer, an iPhone, an iPod, or an iPad? Yes, many of us do. Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, another great example of a company that Buffett's now taught at least 2 generations of investors about how to invest. And his creation of Berkshire Hathaway, in a lot of ways, is the creation of a work of art. It's stunningly beautiful what he's done there. We talk about the heroic. Good examples of that are companies like, Bill Gates at Microsoft, first at Microsoft, and now with the Gates Foundation. Totally heroic individual. Muhammad Yunus, who created the Grameen Bank and microcredit loans, which is helping end poverty across the world, another heroic individual. Southwest, giving people the freedom to fly. Google, organizing the world's information, making it easily accessible. REI, reconnecting people with nature. All to a higher purpose beyond just profits. Next slide. My own company, what great purpose will Whole Foods fulfill in the next 20 years? I think we're going to do several things, but the one I'm focusing on today is we're hoping to raise consciousness about the principles of healthy eating. Whole Foods, plant-strong, nutrient-dense, and healthy fats. Next bullet point, there we go. Radically improving the health of people in the United States, Canada, the UK, and other countries. Helping millions of people to prevent and reverse the lifestyle diseases that are primarily killing us. Obesity, heart disease, cancer, and stroke, and autoimmune diseases. Do you realize that our country spends 80% of our healthcare dollars go to diseases no one should ever get? No one should ever get heart disease. No one should ever get obesity. No one should ever get stroke. No one should ever have cancer. These are diseases that are primarily connected to diet and lifestyle choices. One of our purposes at Whole Foods is to help educate people how they can live to be 100 years of age and avoid all these types of diseases. Some of the other cultural aspects I want to talk about. Authenticity. It's very difficult for creativity to flourish in an organization without authenticity. Leadership has to walk the talk. It doesn't matter what you say, nearly as much as what you do. That the people that work for you see what you say, they hear what you say, and they see what you do, and they pay attention to what you do a lot more than what you say. In a company like Whole Foods Market, we encourage our people that work for us to bring their whole selves to the workplace, for them to be authentic. We don't think people can be innovative and creative if they're not truly being themselves when they're in the workplace. We also believe in authentic communication and an honesty and integrity. Have you ever thought about why, I just had the governor speak, so I'll be careful here. Why a lot of people don't like politicians? The main reason is, Oklahoma politicians excluded from this comment, they don't always tell us the truth. In fact, I systematically find most of our presidents lie to us. And it's very discouraging to see president after president, year after year, telling us, Americans, things that we just know aren't true. And And they're taught to do that because they don't think the American people can handle the truth. And so they spin everything. And this is how it works in America today. You go through media training, and I flunked media training. I took it 4 times at Whole Foods. I flunked it every time because I had this commitment to always try to be honest, to be authentic in my communications. And I think American people hunger for that. And I think an organization, if it's going to be creative and dynamic and innovative, has got to base authentic, honest communication in the workplace. It's what Americans are hungry for in our leadership, both at political levels and in corporate levels. I'm a great believer in decentralization. My company is highly decentralized. The reason why is that when you locate the power of the organization completely at the top, in a sense, you aren't allowing the creativity of people to flow throughout the organization. My company has 64,000 people working for us, and we're so decentralized, and we let the decisions that Austin should make, the global decisions we make, but usually the decisions get made at the regional level, at the store level, at the team level within the stores, as well as the individuals within each team. And we have found that unleashes creativity, that as long as you have to ask permission to do things, people aren't going to be nearly as creative. So going along with decentralization is empowerment. Decentralize and then empower people at the store level to serve your customers, to innovate, to be creative. Those 2 things go together. Our company's organized into self-managing work teams. Every store is divided into about 10 teams. The teams do their own hiring. They do their own merchandising. To even get voted on a team requires a 2/3 vote by the team. And people get voted. They don't get voted on the team if they're not going to be creative and productive and good contributors to the team. We find that by decentralizing and combining that with empowerment, we get this engaged team member base that is the secret to Whole Foods' creativity. Transparency. Too much of corporate America, in my opinion, has kind of a military view that information is shared on a need-to-know basis. I actually believe that's a bad corporate strategy. It's far better to risk some of your valuable information leaking out to your competitors by fully empowering and having your information transparent to your workforce. So Whole Foods strives to be transparent to all of our major stakeholders, our investors, our team members, our customers, and our larger communities. There's a tendency in our company to over-disclose rather than under-disclose. Love, care, and trust. Study after study after study shows people will not be creative when they're afraid, and that love and trust and care are essential for people to fully flourish and allow their innovation and creativity to flourish along with it. And yet, in far too much of America, far too much business, love is seen as something that's weak. That instead, the metaphors we use in business tend to be more military metaphors. We're going to roll over them. We're going to crush those guys. Those guys are history. And so we have this kind of macho, masculine culture where it equates far too often with love as somehow or another that's the soft side. That's all sounds kind of good, but we've got to be tough. And somehow the belief is that love is somehow they're weak. I found it to be the exact opposite. Love is incredibly strong, and it's the most powerful energy there is in the universe, in my opinion. It's the most important value and virtue any company can have. And we have found that in order to fully unleash the creativity of people, they cannot be afraid. You know the story about Jack Welch does, or when he was at General Electric, I don't know if they still do this practice, where every year they would basically fire the 10% of the workforce who had the worst performance review ratings. You guys have all heard about that, right? I can't think of a strategy that would cause more fear than that one, because everybody be scared to death. They're going to fail, so they'd be playing it safe. And when people are playing it safe, they're not going to be as innovative and creative.
Instead, people have got to be able to feel safe and feel that they're cared for in the workplace. We have found that more than anything else, our team members want to know somebody cares about them. And that when they feel that sense of care, they can relax into their work and they can bring their whole self, their whole innovative, creative self to it. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the work or how many of you read the book Flow or are familiar with these ideas, but we've all experienced what it's like when we're performing at our most highest creative level. We're in the sense of flow. The traffic lights turn green, ideas flow, everything clicks, we meet the right people at the right time, we're just grooving along. Those flow states are enhanced in organizations that permit love to fully express itself. Innovation. Whole Foods Market is a culture of innovation. I believe we're the most highly innovative food retailer in the United States. Everybody copies us. I actually like it when one of our competitors comes up with a good idea, because I know we can copy it and improve on it probably better than they can do themselves. So our company is structured to encourage it, recognize it, reward it, and spread it. In today's hyper-competitive corporate world, the only lasting competitive advantage that any organization's got at the end of the day is their ability to innovate. Particularly a retail company like Whole Foods, where we don't have any patents. We can't prevent our competitors from studying what we're doing and imitating it. Therefore, you got companies like Walmart you have to compete against, it's very important that you stay not just one step ahead of them, but several steps ahead of them. That you innovate quicker than they can copy. Collaboration. Innovation plus collaboration, that's Whole Foods Market's secret sauce. These two things go together so well. And innovation occurs at one store because we're decentralized and empowered, and yet through the internet, through technology, through digital photography, that new idea can spread so quickly. And then each store that takes the idea studies it and then improves upon it. And so the next version of it is better than the first original version. And so that you have this continuous improvement through collaboration. To have a culture that's collaborative, it's essential that you never have this idea that, well, not invented here. Yeah, we're not going to do that because not invented here. Or, I invented this, I'm not going to share the information. Our company is highly collaborative. And so when good ideas get invented, I'll give you an example. About just a year and a half ago, one store located in Santa Rosa, California, heart of the wine country, in their store created a tap room. A tap room, they took, little did I know that Sonoma County, California is not only got great wine, but they're incredibly innovative in artisan beer production. The next thing I know, this store had 16 draft beers on tap, all from craft beers, high alcohol content, I might add as well. And within the first week of doing that tap room, that store sales in that department were bigger than the entire seafood department sales, just selling beer in this tap room. And now, a year and a half later, we have 75 bars in our stores around the company, because the next store took it and said, why stop with beer? Let's do wine too. And so now Whole Foods Market is operating. Who'd have thought we were going to be in the alcohol business? We're a Whole Foods Market, right? And yet the bars have proved to be incredibly successful and popular. Created by one store, the innovation occurs there, and then through collaboration, it spreads throughout the organization. And improving the entire time. Innovation plus collaboration. So let me conclude my talk by saying, again, creativity is intrinsic to who we are as human beings. We're all creative. What has to happen is creativity has to be encouraged, it has to be nurtured, it has to be seen as the most precious human resource that there is. Humanity has amazing problems. We have some terrible problems. And guess what? bureaucratic governments are not going to figure out the solutions. It's going to be entrepreneurs. It's going to be not just business entrepreneurs, but all types of entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, educational entrepreneurs, environmental entrepreneurs, political entrepreneurs that are going to unleash their creativity to come up with unique solutions that we can't figure out right now. It's been amazing to me the type of things that have been invented in my lifetime, and yet it's up to the generation of young people today to solve the problems that my generation has been unable to solve. The future ultimately always rests with the young. The great thing about the young is you don't yet know what you can't do. You don't yet know what you can't do. And your creativity is essential. We have to throw that into your creativity has to be given to the world in such a way that through your creativity and through collaboration that we can solve the great problems that humanity faces today, and we can better humanity as a result. We do know some things that short-circuit innovation and creativity. Fear does, bureaucracy does, and command and control structures do. Big government oftentimes has all three of those things: command and control, bureaucracy, and fear. And it's worrisome to me that the United States is looking for big government to solve the problems that we face today, when it's going to be obvious to me that they're not going to be able to solve it. It's going to be people in this room, it's going to be creative entrepreneurs that solve these problems. Purpose, decentralization, empowerment, authenticity, transparency, love, care, trust, innovation, and collaboration are all cultural patterns which encourage organizational creativity. Thank you very much for having me today. I was going to call you back.
Thank you. Let's invite back Aubrey McClendon to join us for this conversation as well. Thank you, John. Outstanding. Thanks, Aubrey. Well, I don't think we could hear any more validation for this group on the things that we're focused on and our goals here with the Creativity Forum. So we're grateful for your comments and for your insight today. I'm curious, Aubrey, as you stood backstage listening to John's remarks, first of all, we're excited that you reached out to John and opened the door here to Oklahoma for bringing his company and his culture here. Your thoughts about what John just mentioned about the process of kind of cultivating a creative environment?
First of all, I thought it was the best business presentation I'd ever heard. So I'm really remarkable, John. Well done. And I think also John made a number of points that some of us in a business leadership role you think of, but haven't really fully articulated as well as he has. So it sends me back to the drawing board to think about some things. But some other things that he talked about, are intuitive to me, and I hope to our organization as well. And so we're in different businesses, but we certainly need creative people, and we certainly don't seek to fire 10% of our staff every year to keep people in fear, because I certainly agree that people need the authenticity. They certainly need the purpose. They need to see management commitment, and they need to hear the truth. And so I thought it was fantastic, and really delighted that John spent his time with us today when he could be lots of other places.
It's interesting to me because you gentlemen have done such pioneering things. Do you see yourselves as revolutionaries of sort, or is it just solid business foundational principles that allow you to make the choices that you make?
Yeah, I'm a revolutionary.
I don't think I am.
Yeah, he is too.
No.
He's revolutionizing the entire energy business for the whole world. I think that's pretty revolutionary.
Didn't set out to.
But yeah, is that the foundation of your work? You say, I'm going to be a revolutionary, or does it start somehow differently?
Well, his I think probably did. For me, I just have always been comfortable thinking through things and doing it more or less my way, and being willing to not be bothered too much by criticism. I think you have to listen to your critics, because oftentimes they're the only people around you who will really tell you the truth. But oftentimes they don't see some things that you have the ability to see. And so I think one of the benefits that I've had is simply that I had some things came to me, some ideas came to me, and I pursued them. And I pursued them with a singleness of purpose. And I think certainly as you look back on John's career, he's done the same thing. I think one of the reasons I've always had a hard time talking about creativity is that in most people's minds, I think creativity means a relief from work. I can sit back and just think about big ideas. And if you've been to a Whole Foods store, the first night it opened, I met his vice president for the Southwest region at the store. And he was the guy who had a broom and a dustpan. And so it's just, you can be creative as you want, but if you're not willing to work hard, if you're not willing to take care of the details, to see those ideas put into action, then your creativity, frankly, are just dreams or worse hallucinations. And so what we try to do at our company is not just be creative and act creatively, but also to pay attention to the details of our business. And obviously, that's what you see at Whole Foods every day as well.
You'll get a kick out of this. When I first started my gymnastics school, I hired a Romanian long before I met my wife, Nadia Comanici, who came here to the United States to work. And we didn't have any money. We started our gym. We had nobody to clean the gym. So on Sundays, we'd get together, bring some beer and pizza, play the music loud, and we'd clean the gym all together. And this young coach came over, and she said, I said, come over Sunday. We're going to clean the gym from 2 to 5. She goes, I'm Olympic champion. I don't clean the gym. And I said, me too. Here's a broom. That's how you do it. We're inspired by your remarks, obviously, John. And can you cite, and you did in your presentation, some really exciting examples, the creativity that your employees have brought to the forefront that have really helped propel your company?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, the organization that, if you view your people that work with you as not as a human resource, but as sort of the source, that they're all creative individuals. And the organization that can tap into that creativity, encourage it, help it to flourish, and then through collaboration, can channel it in constructive ways, has huge competitive advantages in the workplace. In the 21st century, it's going to be organizations that are innovative that are going to win the game. The economies of scale are less important. A lot of the things that used to predict corporate success, they're still important, but they're less important. And capital, for example, is not such a constraint anymore. Capital is far more common today than it was when I got started 30 plus years ago. It was, we're out begging for money, but today, any entrepreneur that comes up with a good idea generally can find financing. The venture capital has come so far. So it's, at the end of the day, it's that creativity and innovation an organization has. And Whole Foods has got, I gave the general principles of it, decentralization, authenticity, empowerment. Those are cultural values that we think encourage creativity and innovation.
It seems to me in many circles, creativity is seen sort of as a nice thing. But how do we reinforce that it's also a necessary thing, Aubrey?
I think you have to be careful sometimes about taking it too far. For example, there are aspects of what our company does where creativity is not particularly welcome. For example, if you're an accountant, for us. I'm not looking for a great deal of creativity from my accounts payable or accounts receivable.
Airplane pilots.
Exactly. So I think, first of all, I don't want everyone out there to think, to be successful in business, I have to be seen as creative, because I don't think every business, I think businesses can be successful in lots of other ways rather than just simply focusing on the creative. But certainly in our company, we try to create ways for people to think creatively. I think one of the big challenges for us is that what Tom Ward and I did now 22 years ago would be very difficult, or probably impossible to replicate today, which is two guys go out with $50,000 and start a company and start drilling wells. The business is too big. The capital requirements are too big. The challenges, the technological challenges are too great. So that requires Tom and his company and me at Chesapeake to create ways for people to be entrepreneurial and creative inside of a large organization. And that's not typically the way people think about being successful. And so I oftentimes talk to young people, particularly about you don't necessarily have to define whether or not you're successful in life or in business by did you go out and do it your own. You can actually be quite accomplished and quite creative and quite capable inside of an organization. You have to find the right one, and so we've tried to do that across our company.
Can you cite some examples of coworkers who have created something that was completely out of the box within the confines of your company?
I mean, it happens. It happens every day. Sometimes I think about the reverse. I've got 12,000 employees, and so if 1% of them are having really bad ideas on a day, that's 120 people having some really bad ideas. So part of running a creative organization is to be able also to keep bad ideas from being implemented, and sometimes you don't know they're bad until they've been implemented. But I mean, I think if you just walk around our campus, you see some of that every day. And when you think about how we conduct our business today, I mean, John's purpose is to bring healthy food to everyone. The purpose of the company that I work for is to allow this generation of Americans to never experience what I've experienced the past 40 years, which is to be in the stranglehold of OPEC. We're going to export $5 trillion a decade to oil producers around the world. I don't think we can afford it anymore. And so our purpose is to get Americans off imported oil on domestic resource like natural gas, or not like natural gas, and cut their fuel costs in half and put millions of Americans back to work. So that's
sounds pretty revolutionary.
And that's not a dream, and that's not a hallucination. That's doable, and it's been harder than I thought because we haven't picked up as much support in Washington as I thought we would. But it'll happen, and just as his idea through hard work and seeing the need that people have, you can't stop it, and I don't think at the end of the day you'll be able to stop us either.
Very inspiring. It's interesting to me when I think about the revolutions that you all are sort of shepherding, that you create a culture in your company that approves and supports and embraces creativity, but inevitably sometimes it becomes political. How do you keep your spirit and your energy when it becomes complicated? This always happens.
By political, you mean internally political?
Both ways, both internally and externally. Obviously, you talk about, energy resources around the globe and shifting the wealth shift that goes to the Middle East. That's a political issue at some point. So how do you keep your spirit alive when you know that there might be people that don't agree?
I mean, Aubrey already said it. You kind of have to have a bit of a thick skin, because you're going to be, any type of really creative person is going to be criticized and is going to have pressure to constrain themselves, because it's going to threaten somebody. Somebody's going to perceive themselves as losing, and so they're going to resist. So I think the best way is that you don't let your spirit be. You have to have enough self-confidence that you continue to go into the world and you're creative, and you don't. When you meet resistance, you find creative ways around that resistance. I always view almost any type of challenge as an opportunity to express creativity. It's like, I know there's a creative solution to that. I always ask myself, what's the win strategy here? How can we work this out so everybody wins? I think that's something people don't understand enough about business and capitalism. It's a system that creates win strategies. values being created for customers, values being created for employees, values being created for suppliers, values being created for investors, values being created for the larger society. Win-win-win-win strategies. So when you meet that political resistance, it's a great opportunity to not be discouraged, but to innovate.
With regard to the internal politics, I've never believed in pitting departments against each other and pitting vice presidents and senior vice presidents against each other. And I've never seen this in a business presentation, but when John mentioned the word love, and I've always thought, and I've said to smaller groups of people, I love my employees. That's why I do what I do. I don't love everything that they do, and I'd love for some of them to work a little harder. But at the end of the day, I don't think you can do what John's done, or I don't think you can be successful in our business or any business if you don't like people. So one of the first things that you have to decide if you're going into business is not just am I creative, you have to say, do I love to be around other people, and am I willing to share credit? Am I willing to foster an environment where responsibility for successes is shared, but at the end of the day, you'll take the blame for failures, and that's what I've always tried to do. We've made a lot of failures over the time, and virtually every time it has been my fault. And so, we just pick ourselves up and go on. So I see a lot of organizations get bogged down in internal politics, and I think it's the CEO who either allows that or doesn't allow it, and I think that's got to be something that you decide early on that you're just not going to tolerate.
John?
It's part of its culture. If you have if your organization has this purpose or mission it's trying to accomplish, that tends to unify everybody working together to create those goals. An organization that has a lot of political divisions internally is an organization which is not aligned around its purpose and mission. And frankly, at Whole Foods, we're too busy to and our culture, again, we just don't tolerate it. Where we find that type of politics going on, those people don't get promoted, and they get moved out. So the virtue of Whole Foods is collaboration. So if you've got to have a collaborative attitude, or you don't fit in well, and you're not going to be promoted. So the leadership decisions you make and what you tolerate will determine a lot whether your organization has a lot of political infighting or not. Like Aubrey, I can't stand it, so I don't tolerate it at Whole Foods, and I root it out wherever I find it.
It's interesting for our audience here because obviously a lot of people take a great deal of inspiration from the work you're doing. So I think it's important for them to understand that here you are now enormously successful in your industries, but it wasn't always that easy. So I think they're going to take something away from this program, especially a sense of inspiration that what you did when it got tough.
I think something that we have in common is we're both entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs by nature are pretty creative people. And we both started our businesses from scratch and with not very much capital. And that requires you to be innovative and creative to bootstrap your way up because there's no other way to do it. So one of the things I like to ask people when I meet them, particularly when I speak at universities, I ask people, how many people someday plan to start their own business? And it's quite interesting because a huge percentage of young people, in business schools at least, dream about being entrepreneurs. And they just are somewhat afraid to do it. They've taken on all this debt to go get their schooling, and someday they're going to do it. But the entrepreneurial spirit usually doesn't want to wait. It just wants to get going on it. So those of you that aspire to be entrepreneurs or want to have your own businesses, my piece of takeaway advice is get out there and start doing it because time is not your friend generally for creating new businesses.
My wife and I have a 5-year-old, and I think probably he'll work in an industry when he's of workable age that doesn't even exist today. So I think it's more than just a nice thing, but it's necessary.
We're expecting your child to be an Olympic gold medalist, Bart. Oh. We're not settling for anything less than that.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay. Put the pressure on. Thanks a lot, John.
We're expecting the same thing from Steffi Graf and Andre Agassi in tennis. So.
All right. Well, my son read his first book the other day, so a big moment in our house. I hope he does well in school. Any final words for our audience, Aubrey, about what they can take away?
Yeah, I think just maybe echoing some things that we've said, but in my recent lifetime, I suppose the words the word entrepreneur gets associated with business success. I mean, I started out mowing lawns when I was 12 years old, and I sold Christmas cards. I sold fireworks out of my garage to my parents. so my parents discovered my stash next to the hot water heater, which was run by natural gas. But basically, when I meet an employee at our company, I always say, I've done some part of what you do. I've cleaned offices, I've mowed the lawn, I've taken the trash out, I've done all those things. And I think when I find that people have made mistakes in starting businesses, they're not willing to do everything, and you have to do everything at the end of the day. And just one other little thought. I sometimes I meet with all of our new employees in groups of 40 for about 4 hours, and I occasionally get asked. It's not quite as indelicately as I'll put it, but how do I get rich? They'll never say that, but that's basically what they're saying. And I say, I've never met anybody who's so-called rich or financially rich who set out to be that. What they did, I think John described this as well, they found something that they loved. They poured themselves into it. They determined that they were going to be better at it than anybody else. And then more often than not, some financial or other benefits come your way. And sometimes the benefits of what you do away from the money are far more rewarding to you over time. Not everyone can do what John does, but your salary last year was $1. So not everybody can work that cheaply. But the point is, you've got to be willing to do that. And I think that's, for me, one of the things I think is very important when you're starting out. You have to be willing to do it all yourself. You have to be willing to work harder than other people. And you can't be in it for the money, or you'll ultimately be disappointed, I think.
Thank you very much. I think I'd like you all to join me. I've always felt if businessmen were rock stars, we're looking at the Rolling Stones. So I hope that's a compliment to you, gentlemen. You're younger than the Rolling Stones.
We don't want to be Brian Jones, so that's a good one.
Let's all give a round of applause for our two business leaders. Thank you for being here, gentlemen. Thank you, John.